Guys, my name is Ian. I'm the owner of Wheel Every Weekend, and today I'm going to show you guys how to install our rooftop tent security mounts. So they all come in these little small flat rate boxes, and there are three main components to the mounts. You have, in this case, our proprietary keyed hardware. There's the blue zinc bolts that we use, and then there's the actual physical mounts themselves. These are really nice. They're billet aluminum, CNC machined, and then they have a type 2 gloss black anodized coating on them. I'm super happy with how they came out. So this is what your stock 10 mount setup is going to look like. This is a great example because these bolts aren't even long enough for a 2-inch square tube mount. Typically though, you'll have this, and then there'll be this cheap piece of stainless flat strap on the bottom. These break in half, and then these will either break or they can be cut super easily. So actually when I'm installing these for customers, I'll go through and I won't unbolt them. I'll actually just use bolt cutters and take them right off. So you just bring them in like that, and then just a little bit of pressure, and the bolt pops in half. And because of the design of these mounts, this plate is sitting here. Now that this bolt has been cut, you just spin this plate out of the way, do it 3 more times around the tent, and then pick it up, and you're away with the entire tent. Literally, I can do it in less than 60 seconds. I can take someone's tent. The bolt cutters themselves, these are just from Harbor Freight. And they're quiet. They don't set off your car alarm because it's not a lot of vibrations like a reciprocating saw will have. And they're like 10 bucks. That's the main thing I'm trying to avoid. So now that that's off, let's pop this thing up and then we'll pull these guys out. You can see this is like a standard tent mount setup. It has an aluminum puck that our bolts sit in. This is an 8 by 1.25 millimeter bolt. It has a 13 millimeter head. And you can see our hardware just goes in place of it, sits in the rail like that, and then you put it back in. Boom, super easy. But let's get this other side. One of the tricks I've learned is that you can actually just grab a wood block. This is massively overkill, but all you do, lift the tent up, place the wood block under it, and then rest the tent on the wood block, and then you can pull out the other aluminum slider. So then take both the sliders, swap our hardware into them, put them back in, put one on one side of the rail, one on this side of the rail, lift the tent back up, you see where they are on either side of the rail, and then lower it into place. So now all you're going to do is you're going to take your mount and you're going to line it up with the bolts so that they slide into the holes like that. And then you're going to take your proprietary keyed hardware, put it on, and just loosely tighten it onto the mount. You absolutely don't want to use power tools for any part of this installation, and you especially don't when you're taking your stock bolts off, because power tools will actually gall the stainless and they'll break them in half. It's pretty frustrating when it happens, and it's one of the downsides of the super cheap hardware. So all I've done here is I've tightened it as much as I can by hand. And that's all you need to do at this step. An issue with the proprietary hardware is that it only goes in one orientation. So you're gonna have to sit there and fumble with it a little bit. That one just went in randomly. I wish I could say that was on purpose, so it's totally random. But usually I sit there and I'll spin it a little bit until I find the right spot. These are keyed very close. You can make them so that they have a bit more tolerance and then they're a bit looser and easier to put in, but it's not as good of a product. So now that that's on, I'll just do the same over here. So now that that's on as tight as I can get it by hand, I'm gonna put a crescent wrench onto the key and I'm gonna turn it about half a turn, or in this case, it feels like maybe it needs a full turn. Afterwards, you're gonna go and try and fit the key onto this one. See, this is what I mean by you have to spin it and make sure it lines up, but it should click into place. And then you're gonna wanna spin this one about half a turn. So, one of the important things to check is to make sure that the gap on top is equal on both sides. I probably have a bit more of a gap on this backside than I do here. That's totally fine. You can just loosen this a bit, tighten that one a bit, and even it out. but you really only want it about half a turn past tight. The reason being is that these aluminum rails on your tent are very soft and they can bend. So if your tent manufacturer does not list torque specs for any of this stuff, you can just do it half to a full turn past completely snug with your hand. So that's pretty much it. Now you just have to go back and do that 3 more times. It's pretty easy. It just goes on the same way your other ones come off. With the tri-slot hardware, there is external lock washers that you'll have to line up with a bolt as well. That can be kind of tricky, but as long as you just stick with it, you'll get it. The one thing that you're gonna have to do is after about 500 miles or pretty much your first off-road trip, you're gonna have to go back and check the tightness on all these. What happens is the bolts don't come loose, but this aluminum rail for your tent is incredibly soft and it will settle into place, and the distance from here to here will actually become a little bit smaller. And because of that, the bolt will seem like it's loose. So you can just go through and do that same thing, hand tight, and then half a turn with a crescent wrench, and you'll be good to go for years. We had ours on for, I think, 3 years. Pre-running, hitting whoops, jumping it, all the trails at King of the Hammers. We did the Rubicon like 5 times, the Moab, and it was great. I didn't check it after the first couple initial torque specs and after the aluminum is settled. So if you guys are out on your adventures and you got some cool photos of these mounts, we love to see them. Please send them to us or tag us in them. We really appreciate it. And I mean, we're a really small disabled vet run business, so we just really appreciate everyone's order from us. It means a ton. If you guys have any questions, our contact is at the bottom of the frequently asked questions page. You can find our email there, or you can just go wheeleveryweekend@gmail.com. But be sure to check out the frequently asked questions because they might have the answer you're looking for faster than I can get back to you. So that's it. Thanks again for your order, and we'll see you guys on the trail.